I guess it's been a minute since I've done this. Well, I mean, I guess these candid casts or whatever I've been referring to tie some of these things together to give it a conscious effort was put on hold a bit. Bumps along the road as far as life goes. But it's nice to get back to it a little bit and give these refreshers and be able to not just quote or be robotic about things and go text to speech, as I know a lot of people don't prefer that at all. They prefer more genuine casting and more genuine feedback or or thoughts, whatever. But the one that I got with this one, know thyself, and this goes back to some some deals or some things that have happened in my life that have obviously come to that. And know thyself, I took just something simple from Socrates, and the Greek version is ΓΝΩΘΙ ΣΑΥΤΟΝ. And with that being said, there is a lot of things to where we do have to know ourselves. We do have to navigate this world. And, not to get too philosophical or theological about it, but as I know this channel tends to do with the kind of podcasts I have and the guests I have on, and obviously the major theme of the channel that goes in a few different directions, but there is a main aspect to it. But anyway, regardless of all that, I some of the things I can, and I am credentialed or credible to speak on, is I have worked since I've been the age of 18, right? Legally, as far as that goes, we if you didn't have a kind of under the table job and or chores as a kid and learn responsibility before you were 18, before you could legally, I guess, collect wages. And I know in some states it's 16. There's all different kinds of variants with that. There's obviously co-op in school, shop class, things like that where you could earn money while you're in school, right? In high school, that is. Sometimes even depends on the context. Sometimes even middle school if you're like a super genius, unlike me. Anyway, the point of the matter is that when you come to know yourself and when you come to build your character, and when you're so afraid and so cushioned outside of what the real world might present, I've noticed there starts to be this ivory tower kind of phenomena. And I especially noticed in my two remote roles, both with a logistics company called Algo and with an insurance company called Hanover Insurance. I noticed that the identity politics started to infect the whole premise of what the mission is, of what it was. To me, obviously, as an Orthodox Christian, that is just polemical nonsense. It's spiritual delusion. So, in my best interest, it was always best to ignore things like that, which for the most part, it was, because it wasn't contextual to the bottom line. It wasn't contextual to making money. It wasn't contextual to running the business. Now, as far as being an effective worker and a practical and pragmatic one, I would say, I did nothing but that, nose to the grindstone kind of mentality. Everybody is so concerned about what the end result is. They get this ivory tower syndrome. And just as the Pharisees and the Sadducees rejected Christ, or the laws of the land rejected God's commandments, well, it's no coincidence that get woke, go broke is a saying, because obviously you're going against people's natural inclination. You don't even need You don't even need God or Jesus Christ in this context, right? This is why I brought in, well, more or less a pagan philosopher, one that I reference often, which was probably appropriate for for this. And with that being said, it's very much contextualized in this ivory tower syndrome that I have noticed. Right, when you're working with people, and even when I was an assistant manager at Buddy's Pizza, I noticed that the more I had my staff lead themselves and then cross-train their peers, along with showing me new things, because I didn't know it all either. Collaborative environment, open environment, and that's the best way to get the work done. That's the best way to go above and beyond, and actually feel like you're there for the benefit of each other at work, right? And I don't want to use the cliche, oh, we were all, we all acted like family, or we were all friends outside of work, or this and that, yeah, and such and such. I mean, I hung out with some of them. They were cool, guys and gals. That is obviously with this channel. Yep. Just men and women. That's it. And the thing of it is that, because if I didn't say that, that's my tagline. The thing of it is that when it comes to when you righteously or you see the potential in people to do other things, and them not just getting down to a grind and expecting these same things day in and day out, well, then the insanity goes right out the window. Then you can rely on these other people. Then you can start to build these relationships in a professional manner. And face to face, human being to human being is much different. Hiring, firing, talking out problems, being able to make that time for whom the people that are helping you, right? That's just it. There was no ivory tower syndrome on that front. And when you start to have that mentality as a leader, or as an executive, or as somebody who wants to climb the corporate ladder, it's doomed to fail. And the problem is when you start to get in that Pharisee realm, and the people who are trying to grind it out, who are trying to be navigate those waters, both polemically, I guess you could say religiously too. They start to seem like social pariahs in a way. And when you're not towing the line on the DEI orthodoxy, or whatever newfangled version of this interjected nonsense is, that this ivory tower phenomena starts to build. And as we all know, these towers that start to build, well, they will soon fall. It's not going to be ideologically and or substantially withheld in anybody's mind, because, well, as a given in this channel, and as a given to many of my viewers who I assume are mainly Christian, that tower is going to fall and scatter. And this is why in the corporate world that I saw at these two past companies that I worked for with this nonsense. It was just nonsense. And yeah, sure, a lot of the job responsibility was on me, and there was, there were performance issues, and there were issues that, I was very candid about and correcting, and I showed character, I showed grit, I showed resiliency. But getting the short end of the stick, just because somebody is higher up than you are, and they can make these decisions at will, I can see where somebody like Karl Marx was going. I can see where somebody like a reform and these unions were going. I can see where the logic went, but obviously the logical conclusion, well, we all know how that goes, right? Either leads to oligarchy, which, once again, you could relay that this whole ivory tower syndrome, leads to an aspect of you know, corporate oligarchy, right? And it's common in humanity. And you know, I mean, we're not dictated by our better angels, right? So with that being said, knowing that we have to struggle, knowing that we have to overcome the passions, knowing that, you know, obviously money is a major motivator, it's not everything. But with that all being said, people who look to these other things for wisdom, look outside themselves, that have, you know, have the motivation to obviously continue and obviously um try to build the business. That's fine. Like that's noble. But to people who are, you know, in those higher places and want to be the quote unquote, you know, more like captains of industry and embrace all the nonsense, well, you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Because when, you know, you see their employees are frustrated, you're not going willing to work with them, you don't make time, or, you know, there's all kinds of things that go on that distract from what's really happening. Is that, you know, I mean we're human beings. Our intuition tells us these things. Our intuition knows these things. Like, that's knowing thyself. That's knowing where it's going. But we don't know everything because we're not in control. So that's a given, because God is God. I don't need to make any, you know, I don't need to make any grand statements with that. So the thing is that it's like when you throw that all out, and when you throw those things aside, and you start to have this mentality, you start to have this ivory tower mentality. And I get it, that the pressure's different at each level, right? And that, you know, that work, you know, can some people can become workaholics, some people can be so inundated by what they do that it becomes who they are, right? And that's just it. When these things become who you are and they're spiritually deceptive, then it starts to tarnish your soul. Then it starts to tarnish who you are. And I get it. There's a secular aspect to this. That there's companies that need to do this. There's companies that need to show who they are on the outside, but who they really are on the inside is rotten. And that's just it. It's when you start showing these kind of DI mentalities and showing these kind of things. And don't get me wrong, opportunity is opportunity. Capitalism is great. The most qualified people should be the most qualified people based on the content of their character. The reverse aspect has been happening. Why? Identity politics. Why? Because as a secular nation with a corporate culture or whatever that's based on mass consumerism, that's what you get. That's what you get. That's their definition of culture. That's their definition of whatever. And I have since recently been listening to this Life After Layoff channel as well. I'll link him too. I'll link him there as well. He's been really good in back to the job search grind, back to the job search journey, right? And he gives insight and great interview tips and great things like that. And how you have to navigate this and how you have to be the CEO of your own journey. And see, not and there's the other thing with people graduating with degrees, with people who don't know where they're exactly going to wind up. I've known plenty of people like that across the board, all different age ranges, from high school educated to college educated to master's levels, right? Across the board. I've known many walks of life where people don't always wind up exactly where they intended to be, right? Because everybody wants to talk about that dream job, dream house, dream car, dream spouse, whatever, right? And where you always wind up to be you know, God's going to put you there for a reason. It's not that everything happens for a reason. That's just a secular Gnostic statement. God will put you there for a reason. That's it. That's it. So the thing is that, accepting these things, why they happen, how they happen, whomever they happen to, we don't will it, right? We can't will it. And giving that over, that submission, in a way, is I guess you could say a healthy way to look at it, but that's just it. Or you have to start replacing, right? So you have to start replacing God. You have to start replacing these different aspects with these things. And this is why you get this ivory tower syndrome. This is why you get this kind of mentality that people think they know, right? And you can't. You just can't do it. And tying a few of pieces I wrote earnestly into this from my Substack, and writing this current thing. I'm going to upload another video, I believe tomorrow, to finish the whole book, and then I'll expound upon it, because it really was more so, I guess you could say, technically 12, including the introduction and the conclusion, because it was 10 chapters total, but 12 chapters as an introductory to something more. And it will definitely spin off into a couple of other different tangents, is obviously, that's how it goes, right? And there's nothing like a candid cast instead of a setup, premeditated podcast. This one was a little bit more off the cuff, as I've been known to do. But the thing is that it's really become something where it has become treachery behind closed doors, and noticing that you're treated more like a number than an intuitive, sentient, God made being. That's frightening. That's frightening in a world where that's exactly how the deception is. That's exactly how the deception begins. Now, unlike a lot of other channels, right, who conspire to that and who want to get into more of, that territory, albeit they can do it. They're leading people towards a better path. They're leading people to wake them up, rightfully so. When it comes, and when it's that in front of your face, on a daily basis, and what people want to project as some kind of righteous indignation or some kind of righteous cause to replace what we already intuitively know as humans. And I can see it in different aspects. I can see the goodness in it. I can even see, why people want to believe what they want to believe for individualism. It's a noble thing. It just gets twisted and perverted, just like everything else, without, submission to the church, submission to God. So it's there. It's in front of our faces. But that ivory tower syndrome is just, it's so prevalent. It's become so prevalent in corporate culture that reminds me of, well, I'm a Metallica song, King Nothing. You point your finger, but no one's around. Where's your crown? King Nothing, right? Much like a lot of Old Testament kings who had a kingdom to reign over, but no one to rule over. So that's just it. Where it's just you get those lessons in life, and you get those lessons to realize who the ultimate king is. That's a king with an eternal kingdom. But that's a whole different thing. And like I said, I wasn't going to go down that path. And I'm trying to, not stay on that, or not go down that path. But anyway, what I was going to go back to is this life after layoff, and it really helped me, to know myself, to tie a lot of things together, to go back and reread some of the Substack articles I wrote, and to go back and, I mean, I guess as somebody who's in the West, somebody who knows German, somebody who obviously has been trying to learn Greek, and somebody who's obviously very much philosophically and theologically oriented, there is this whole thing with Friedrich Nietzsche, right? And I obviously have some of his books on my channel. I obviously have some of his books or some of my thoughts and feedback from it, and I plan on doing a little bit more with that this year. Getting back to those roots a bit as well. There's something deeply Hellenic about him. There's something deeply Greek spirited about him. And when I say that, obviously I'm not trying to say that to just beat people over the head with it. But in what I noticed with this life after layoff and work culture and hustle culture and all that is that there is that mentality to know who you are, to stay true to who you are. But with all these other parameters, with all these other identity politics, we get lost in who we are. So we want to portray this image, this ivory tower, this grand facade that's there, but we lose who we are. See, Nietzsche being somebody who is in the West, but yet very much a classic Hellenic in a lot of the ways he thought, and that a German idealism that was rolled into it, that was there, right? That was there. And ultimately, he came back to the conclusion that God exists. He came back to that through his madness, right? And it didn't help that, he was basically, I mean, he obviously wasn't a moral upstanding character, and he had a lot of his issues, but there's lessons to be learned with somebody like him. And no wonder why people want to do their own thing. They want to become their own boss. They want to be self-employed. They see these apps, these side hustles. They want to get where they're going, right? And they want to get where they're going fast. They don't want a boss in their way. They don't want a corporate bureaucracy in their way telling them, well, you can only make such and such this a year, and you can only do this such and such a year. People don't want that anymore. And there is a narcissistic mentality with this, with the spirit of the age. And it was something that Nietzsche would probably poignantly point out, and through somebody like Jordan Peterson has noticed that there's that spirit of an age mentality, that there's that antichrist mentality to it, right? So obviously we must become less so he becomes more in us. But how to synthesize that, I have my issues with the West, as I have pointed out several times here on this channel. But with that all aside, when it comes to life after layoff, I see a lot of the same things. I see a lot of the same philosophies point out, if you will. And with the whole hustle culture, with the whole thing. And people are getting back. There is a pendulum shift. There is a pendulum swing, as he talks about on his channel. There is something going back towards the workers, towards us, towards the people who want to have control of their lives. They want to have financial freedom. They want to build the things that they want to build. They want to do the things that they want to do. Now, to a point, can that become narcissistic? Yes. To another point, if you're trying to just be a productive member of society, do right by others, be an honest, hardworking person, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. The Lord helps those who helps themselves. So the thing is that if those in the ivory tower are not willing to help you and they're scattered, they don't know what the heck they're doing anymore. They don't know what they're preaching. They're preaching false, very false things, extremely false things, and extremely damning things. That's what they're doing. That's what they're good at. So that deception that's there for them to come back and create that turmoil and put it back on people who are making them money, this is where Marx and the unions do have that synthesis correct. That kind of pyramid scheme, that Ponzi scheme that's there, right? There, because the corporate structure is a very top-heavy Ponzi scheme in a lot of ways. But when you synthesize that and want to turn it over to a battle between like the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, well, that overt benevolence from the oligarchy, from the proletariats, is deception. That's covert, malicious deception, is what that is. And that is why, in the natural order and with people's intuition and inclination, when things just don't seem right, people know. People know. And as this other part of my channel, I do have, want to extend the brewing some more. But as a home brewer, it was kind of funny that the whole Bud Light thing happened, right? And I haven't talked about it yet. And what's there really to talk about? I mean, I still drink the beer from time to time. So what, right? I'm not going to buy more cases of it. I'm not going to, support it much anymore. Just leftovers. So big deal, right? But the thing is that there's a joke with it. And when people know something's wrong, it's funny because it's true. Once again, that leads back to something like know thyself. It's funny because it's true, which is said in the Patriarchy podcast, by the way, the meme one. Shout out, Burgermeister. Hopefully we can do some more. But anyway, so me ranting and raving about whatever. There is consequences to this, like the whole ivory tower mentality, the whole get woke go broke deal. There are consequences to that. Like there just are, and it's financial, and it's something that you can point out who's in control. You can point out, oh, who's doing this, who's doing that. But is it really going to change your day-to-day life? Is it going to really change the toil and the work that you want to put in to make things better for yourself and your family? No, it's not. And the thing is I've learned these lessons, and I've learned some of these lessons the hard way myself, and through many iterations of trying to make money, trying to hustle, trying to see what I am and who I am after getting a college degree. I can tell you that putting your hands to work and doing things and making things and being able to synthesize that is much more rewarding. Is much more adept to who we are. These abstract concepts, these people telling you, well, you didn't perform this way correctly this month, but you were okay this month, but then the other month, and then this and that, and trying to track this down and micromanage you like you're a hamster on a wheel or some kind of plugged-in robot to their orthodoxy or to their 2 minutes hate every day. It's just it doesn't work anymore. Like this whole facade, people don't get it. Like, and that's where that whole ivory tower mentality comes into play. Like the people that are willing to grind it out and the people that are willing to be humble are also the people that are willing to accept and learn other things from other people. Maybe I learned that lesson a long time ago as an assistant manager at a humble pizza restaurant, and that's just it. Where it's like, what's it going to take for some of these companies and some of these people to wake up? Like, what's it going to take? Because and frankly, and I've heard in some other channels criticize like mission statements, criticize corporate philosophy, criticize, well, like I said, the DEI concepts that are out there. And it's very poignant stuff because it's true. It's funny because it's true, and because I usually laugh at it because it's ridiculous. I keep saying because, but that's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's out there, and it's very much something that has been on my mind. It's very much something that has been kind of, kicking around in my head a bit. But it's important. It's important to point out. It's important to be vigilant about. It's important to know, right? So this is for all age groups, all generations, everybody who has any ideas. And obviously, in the context of this being in a religious and philosophical playlist, if you do find this and listen to it all the way through, then thank you and God bless you. And I hope this helps. I hope this gives you guys some insight, and more just keep pressing on. Find what you want to do. Find what you love to do. And that's not just some I'm not talking about out of the context in any other context, but like follow your passions or whatever. There's nothing wrong with saying follow your passions, but don't be a prisoner. Don't be enslaved by your sin in those passions. You can be passionate about things. You can be passionate about cars. You can be passionate about beer. You can be passionate about saving animals. Like those are virtuous things. Those are wholesome things that are going to lead to something. Well, maybe not beer. Maybe not. I'll hold off on that. That one's a little ridiculous. But when these things, you can build on something, and you can know thyself. You can know whom you are as a person. That's a powerful thing, because remember, you were made in his image. So remember that. That's always crucial, because these people that want to come at you and combat you and think about all these other things that are there, that can be good or bad, because that's subjective, right? That can criticize your performance, that can praise you, which, talk about a pendulum swing. It's very, very much competitive battlefield. It very much is so. But remember, if you keep that mentality up and you keep hard nose to it, and you can see right through all the deception, all the red tape, all the bureaucracy, then yeah, that's something to look forward to. That's something that's better. And pray and believe, because God will guide you at the end of the day. So anyway, God bless you all. Just an update, just some things on my mind. And yeah, take it easy.